Hi guys, good to see you again. Today we're reading Bernadine Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other. This is one of my favorites, and you'll soon find out why. If you've read this book um, and you're just here because you want to talk about it, I'll be very happy to respond to any questions or comments that you leave here. Anyway, so this novel won the Booker Prize in 2019. She won it in conjunction with Margaret Atwood. Okay, so it's a multicultural, multi-generational novel that offers an inimitable observation of Black British womanhood. Um, this is because, up until 2019, or maybe a few years ago, Black British women did not feature prominently in literature. And so this is a huge feat, what I've called my review that you'll see, the written one on strokesonpaper.com. It's called Presence and Absence, a review of Bernadine Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other. The phrase presence and absence is actually coined by Evaristo herself when she said in an interview that the novel was written to put presence in the absence of Black British women in literature, and she does a brilliant job of it. Through 12 characters who are unique in their own ways, she gives her readers a front row seat to the workings and complexities of all shades of Black womanhood in Britain. Her women are lesbians, gender non-binary, traditional types, mixed race, immigrants, and even scandalously incestuous, among other things. Girl, Woman, Other is a story of mothers and daughters, which is always my favorite, of friendships and love affairs, and most importantly, of the sort of feminism that is inclusive. It's a powerful story of women navigating time, history, and experiences that make or mar them. It's also about identity, race, and power. So when the story begins, we encounter Amma, a playwright whose play The Last Amazon of the Dahomey is showing at the National Theatre in London. And Amma is a wonderful character, She's walking along the promenade of the waterway that bisects her city. A few early morning barges cruise slowly by. To her left is a nautical-themed footbridge with its deck-like walkway and sailing mast pylons. This is another beautiful thing about this book. It just gives you a glimpse, a very beautiful glimpse of Britain, of London. So it's at this event, the showing of this play, that most of the other major characters encounter one another or nearly do. And Amma is an openly gay mother and liberated woman who has struggled to find acceptance for her work until she finds success now in her 50s. She thinks about her family, her best friend Dominique, who lives in America, her oldest friend Shirley, who has been her most loyal friend since childhood. Shirley, who is a teacher at the multicultural secondary school in Peckham, where another character, Carol, the daughter of Nigerian immigrants, is mentored by Shirley until the girl breaks barriers and goes into Oxford. So this is a huge feat, from a school where most girls ended up as baby mothers, according to Evaristo, and boys went into a life of crime. The whole cliche of, Black people, men in prison, women with children and different fathers and all of that. So one of Carol's friends from the school, Letitia, is another character that Evaristo devotes a chapter to, as she does all of them. So she does this brilliant thing where she begins each chapter with the name of a character, and then through that character, we see portions of the story that she'd like us to see at that point. So it's really wonderful trend setting, and you'll find out as I continue how she uses style in the novel. So Letitia becomes a mother to 3 children by 3 different fathers. The Black woman cliche, but rises above her limitations to become a manager at the supermarket where she works whilst getting a degree part-time. Her and Carol's friendship ends abruptly after the former was gang raped at a party in Letitia's house. Carol keeps this secret. I hope you know when I look down, I'm looking into my computer, sorry. So she keeps this secret. And I mean, all through secondary school, she doesn't even tell her mother, you know, Bumi, who is another chapter character. Bumi arrived in Britain with her husband in search of a better life. They are both disillusioned at first when they both realize that his PhD and her first class bachelor's in mathematics was, worthless in the new country. When they resign themselves to their fate and get to work to make the life that has eluded them for their child instead, as immigrants do, they take up menial jobs. Bumi as a cleaner and her husband as a businessman who drives a taxi, among other hustles, until he suddenly dies of a heart attack and she's left to take care of her child alone in a council flat in Peckham. Despite what she endures, Carol perseveres and makes brilliant grades, graduating with a first from Oxford. So when we meet her, Carol, she's a vice president of an investment bank. A woman who she's reinvented herself into a proper English woman. Her hair is straightened. She speaks with a proper British accent, dissociates herself from her past, even getting engaged to and later marrying a white man from English higher society, much to her mother's initial chagrin. However, she's still harassed at airports and considered a suspect because of her skin color and her Nigerian roots. She's also often objectified by clients and even bosses because she's a woman. Well, that's Carol, but she's an inspiring character. She rises up very fast. In Carol's character, Evaristo shows the importance of education and how you can never go wrong with a good education. So there's also Megan, who becomes Morgan, another chapter character. As she struggles to find herself in a world where her mother and others love the one thing about her that she despises about herself, her femininity. She's beautiful in an exotic way, being the child of a mixed-race mother and a Malawian father. In her quest for self-acceptance, she learns about the trans world and the various identities beyond the socially and biologically assigned genders. And in the end, she chooses to live as gender non-binary, although she changes her name to Morgan instead of Megan, and still appears masculine, according to her great-grandmother. Her great-grandmother, Hattie, another major character, is the only member of her family who fully accepts her and her partner. Her partner is an Asian trans woman. So Hattie herself has a secret, says great-grandmother. She had a child at 14, and her father had taken the child away so that it would not ruin her chances of getting married and continuing his family legacy on Greenland's farm, a family farm. Well, nobody, not even her loving husband, whose death she still mourns, in her 90s, I think, when towards the end of the novel where we meet her. She has a large, happy family and has grown to a ripe old age, but she's still haunted by the story that her own mother, Grace, another major character, had told her before she died about the sailor from Abyssinia who had left before she was born. For her mother died, she told her the story, and so she's haunted by it, trying to understand her own roots. She's also haunted by her secret, wondering what became of her daughter, who she named, I think, Barbara or Grace, can't remember. In helping her great-grandmother to find her roots through DNA internet sites, DNA tests, the things you do on Ancestry and stuff and places like that, Morgan discovers instead the woman's own child, Penelope. Penelope has lived her entire life with a silent dislike for black people. Sometimes it's not so silent, it's not so subtle, like British racism. Having found out in childhood that her own parents were not her biological parents, the people who raised her, she runs off with her high school boyfriend to focus on her own family. Years later, after a divorce, a long career teaching at the same school as Shirley, remember Shirley? Um, Another divorce, now a civil partnership with a nice gentleman. She misses her children and grandchildren and continues to be haunted by questions of her own roots. After a cancer scare, she decides to follow her daughter's advice and find any living relatives. So she too decides to do the ancestry thing. And she is then completely shocked to find out this white woman, privileged white woman who was beautiful and tans easily, She's shocked to find out that not only is she mixed race, more African than Irish, but her birth mother is alive. This is a woman in her 80s. She finds out her birth mother is alive, and on the long taxi ride to Greenland's farm to meet Hattie, her outlook on life has changed. I like what Evaristo does with this character. Only a black person will understand, how Penelope must have felt. After all these years, she's lived her entire life under this, delusion that, black people were peasants, and she looks down her nose on them. They were all drug dealers on the road, on the streets, corners. There were these terrible children that she had to teach at school, spent her entire career trying to mold them, these little rascals, black rascals, and then she finds out that she's black. Talk about shock. Well, she goes to meet Hattie. Her outlook on life has changed. She begins to look at people differently, She tips her black driver, taxi driver, whom she amusingly imagines might be a distant relative, in that cockish British way. She says, who knows, all of these black people, they might all be distant relatives now, you never know. And so when she, an old woman, beholds her old mother, she realizes how quickly the years in between them, the absence from each other's lives, quickly fill up with love. The novel ends with these two women coming together in an embrace that the reader is left to imagine with teary eyes. But that's the end of the novel. But there are other characters through whom Evaristo shows the inner lives of black women in Britain. Questioning, evolving, suffering, loving, thriving, surviving. There's Winsome, Shirley's mom. Remember Shirley, the teacher? She's a character who leaves the reader with mouth agape, with a mix of emotions. She left me traumatized. This woman carries on an affair with her son-in-law for over a year and rationalizes it by thinking that it was better that Lennox, her son-in-law, kept it in the family instead of leaving her plain daughter Shirley or cheating on her. So there are parts of the novel that leaves the reader with tears, parts that are so relatable, especially, for me, it's a black woman who lives in Britain, as also a mother, a Nigerian. Evaristo is a daughter of a Nigerian father and a white mother. So there is also hope, shouts of joy, the endless possibilities that are bound for women, in the 21st century at least. There's violence against women by women, as we see in the case of Dominique, Ama's friend, and the American black woman Zinga, with whom she falls in love and then leaves for the US to live in isolation from others and under control. In the end, she's saved by fellow women, which is a rich message in itself, women empowering women. Even when women oppress women, women also help them to get free. So my favorite major character is Yaz, Ama's daughter. She's young and fearless, and along with a group of university friends, a multicultural bunch named the Unfuckwithables, she embodies the future and the possibilities that the feminist efforts of the past are yielding for women in the present. She embodies also the new black woman in Britain. And then, of course, the new woman. There's an intersectional outlook on the way that, she chooses her friends and the way that they understand, what oppression means and, otherness and whatnot. So I love how they come full circle with Amma and Dominique, the older ones. After Amma's successful play, the old gals are drinking and using drugs recreationally, while the young ones are going up to sleep early to preserve their minds and bodies. Look at that. Evaristo's book is one for the ages, honestly. It is a sort of book in the ranks of Toni Morrison's Beloved that is burned into the flesh of the reader with his fearless artistry and his completely and unabashed humanity. A masterfully crafted story that creates space without conforming to mundane stylistic standards for Black women on different journeys. The dialogues in the novel are not in parentheses, and the prose flows poetically through time and space as we see each woman taking us into her story and the interconnected stories of other women in the novel. It's an epic literary feat which does what it set out to do and even much more. Please find this book, read it, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. You'll find a written version of this analysis on www.strokesonpaper.com. If you've got any questions, comments, just leave them, and I will reply to them as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new, please consider subscribing, like and share, and let's keep reading. Bye-bye.